Most people see golden arches and think comfort food. They're wrong. Welcome to the Mangrove Creek McDonald's, a place where the dollar menu comes with a price tag higher than you can imagine. My name is Clara Hayes, and I took the graveyard shift to escape my past. Instead, I found myself living by 3 strange rules just to survive the night. What's the creepiest thing you've ever seen at your workplace? Tell me in the comments below. And if you're ready for a late night meal, you won't forget. Subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules and ring that bell. Because at this McDonald's, the drive-thru doesn't just take orders, it takes souls. Welcome to the Static Maw, the grease trap at the Mangrove Creek. McDonald's didn't just reek of rancid fry oil. It carried the faintest, sweetest undercurrent of something else. Something cloyingly floral that pricked at my nostrils, and settled in my nostrils, and settled in my chest like a premonition of funeral wreaths. Florida humidity, thick enough to swim through, clung to everything, making the grimy linoleum floors slick underfoot and the air inside the aging restaurant feel like a breathless shared sigh. It wasn't just old. This McDonald's felt wrong. Darker than it should be, the signature golden arches tarnished, seeming to droop under the weight of unspoken history. My name is Clara Hayes. My portfolio was gathering dust. My bank account was a flatline, and the vibrant canvases I once dreamed of filling were now just blank, accusing squares. Desperation, as it often does, had led me to seek the fluorescent sanctuary of late-night fast food employment. The Mangrove Creek McDonald's was hiring for the graveyard shift, a slot no one else seemed to want. I was about to find out why. Mr. Alistair Grimshaw, the manager, was a man whose forced joviality was betrayed by the haunted hollows beneath his eyes, and the tremor that occasionally danced in his thin-lipped smile. He skimmed my application with a detached air, hired me on the spot. Then, with a peculiar gravity that sat ill with the bright plastic surroundings, he laid down the law. 3 rules, Hayes, he said, his voice a low rumble that barely disturbed the thick air. Not guidelines. Rules. You want to see sunrise, you follow them. No questions. He held up a didactic finger. 1. Customer at the counter. No head? Don't serve them. They're not hungry. Just tell them we're out of what they want. They'll leave. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I tried a nervous laugh. Is that a common problem here, sir? Grimshaw's eyes, dark and fathomless, didn't waver. Rule number 2. The fryers. If one of them beeps out your name, I mean clears a bell, your actual name, you unplug it immediately. Don't wait. Don't ask. Unplug. My attempt at a smile died. The smell of funeral flowers seemed to intensify. And 3. His voice dropped further, becoming conspiratorial, almost fearful. The drive-thru speaker. If you hear it, scream out your death. And I mean specifics. Haze, vivid details. Don't answer. Don't even breathe near the microphone. It's calling you. You answer. You go to it. He straightened, the fake cheeriness snapping back into place like a poorly fitted mask. That's it. Keep the order straight, the customer's happy, and follow the rules. We'll get along just fine. My first night, the silence of the empty restaurant was a living thing, broken only by the hum and click of aging machinery and the distant chorus of frogs and insects from the mangrove swamp that pressed in on the back of the building. Shadows stretched and danced under the flickering fluorescent lights, playing tricks on my eyes. I found myself sketching absent-mindedly on a napkin, a distorted golden arch, an eye staring from a grease stain. As I rounded a corner near the back, I glanced towards the locked play place. The primary colors of the tubes and ball pit seemed unnaturally vibrant, almost glowing in the semi-darkness. And for a terrifying, heart-stopping second, I thought I saw a small, pale hand wave from within the deepest tunnel before vanishing. I blinked, told myself it was the oppressive heat and my overactive imagination, but the cloying scent of lilies was suddenly, overwhelmingly, present. The first few hours of my graveyard shift crawled by with agonizing slowness. The fluorescent lights buzzed like trapped insects, casting a sickly yellow pallor over everything. Each creak of the building, each gurgle of the ancient plumbing, sent a fresh wave of unease through me. I felt watched, not by human eyes, but by the building itself, by the oppressive Florida night pressing in. The only other soul in the building was Sal Jenkins, a man whose face seemed permanently etched with the weariness of 1,000 sleepless nights. He worked the grill with a grim, practiced efficiency, offering only a curt nod when I introduced myself. Later, as I wiped down already clean counters, he muttered without looking up, "Just keep your head down, eyes open, and don't go looking for answers you ain't gonna like." Cryptic and not particularly reassuring. Then around 2 a.m. the bell over the door chimed, a jarring, cheerful sound in the dead quiet. A figure stepped inside, tall, clad in a dark, shapeless raincoat. Despite the sweltering night, hood pulled low. It moved with a strange, gliding motion towards the counter. As it neared, I saw it. Or rather, I didn't see it. Where a head should have been, the hood of the raincoat was simply empty. Caved in, shadowed, but undeniably vacant. A cold, primal terror seized me. My breath hitched. My mind screamed. This couldn't be real. Hallucination. Lack of sleep. Don't serve the customer with no head. They're not hungry. Grimshaw's first rule. The figure waited, silent, expectant. The air grew heavy, thick with that funereal sweetness. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Just as I thought I might pass out, Mr. Grimshaw materialized from the back office, his face pale but unnervingly composed. He stepped in front of me. "Evening," he said to the thing, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Afraid we're fresh out of the McCrib tonight. Supply issues, you understand?" The headless figure stood motionless for a long moment. Then, it slowly turned and glided back out the door, disappearing into the humid darkness. The bell chimed again, mockingly cheerful. I stumbled into the narrow break room, gagging, the smell of lilies so strong it felt like I was drowning in them. Grimshaw followed, handing me a cup of water with a trembling hand that betrayed his outward calm. "You did good, Hayes," he said, his voice strained. "First one's always the hardest." Later, Sal found me still shaken, sketching furiously in my notebook. A headless raincoat, lilies erupting from the empty color. He just grunted. "Get used to it, kid. Some of them still think they need a happy meal." He wiped grease from his brow. "This place, it's built on something old, something hungry. The swamp, it remembers." He gestured vaguely towards the back of the restaurant. "That damn play place ain't right either." Before my shift ended, as I was cashing out, my hand brushed against something tucked beneath the register. A child's drawing, creased and age-stained. It depicted crude stick figures standing beside oversized, menacing fryer baskets. Looming over them was a large, shadowy figure with no discernible features, just an abyss of darkness. All around the figures were scribbled red vortexes, like pools of blood, or perhaps portals. The nights at Mangrove Creek McDonald's began to bleed into one another, a disorienting cycle of artificial light, greasy air, and a creeping, insidious dread. My sketchbook became my only confidante, its pages filling with grotesque interpretations of my workplace. Ronald McDonald's painted smile twisting into a leering rictus, shadows with too many eyes, the place tubes coiling like hungry mice, intestines. The place was steeping into my subconscious, tainting my dreams. The fryers were a particular source of unease. They'd hiss and spit at odd intervals, the oil bubbling furiously for no reason, then going eerily still. The indicator lights would blink in strange, almost intelligent patterns. Sal never commented, just worked around them with a tense, practiced caution. One night, as I was refilling the napkin dispensers, a new sound pierced the usual kitchen hum. A series of sharp, distinct electronic beeps. Not random, a pattern. My blood ran cold as I recognized it. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. If the fryer beeps your name, unplug it. Rule number 2. A paralysis of terror rooted me to the spot. The beeping repeated, more insistent this time. The air around the fryer seemed to shimmer, and a faint, acrid smell, like sulfur and burnt sugar, began to drift towards me. Sal, who'd been wiping down the grill, froze, his head snapping up, his eyes, wide with a fear I hadn't seen in him before, locked onto mine. "Clara! Now!" he rasped, his voice tight with urgency. His shout broke the spell. I lunged for the wall socket, my fingers fumbling with the heavy-duty plug. The metal felt unnaturally cold. With a desperate yank, I pulled it free. The fryer's internal fan whined down. The beeping ceased, and the sulfurous odor slowly began to dissipate. But the oil within the quiescent machine still roiled with a slow, unnatural motion, as if something unseen were stirring within its depths. Sal leaned against the counter, breathing heavily. It's learning you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "It always does. Joey, kid who worked here years back. Sweet boy." The fryers called his name too. He swallowed hard. After that, he wasn't right. Started talking about an appetite that couldn't be filled. Then one night he just vanished, left his apron folded neat on the counter. Sal shook his head, a deep sadness in his eyes. His ma never recovered. Later that shift, near closing, I saw Mr. Grimshaw standing alone by the silent, unplugged number 2 fryer. His back was to me, but his shoulders were hunched, and I could hear faint, muffled sounds. He was muttering, low and desperate, like a man pleading for his life or offering a prayer to a cruel, indifferent God. He then straightened abruptly, adjusted his plastic name badge, "Alistair, your friendly manager," with a stiff, jerky movement, and forced that brittle, store-mandated smile onto his face as he turned to acknowledge my presence. It didn't reach his haunted eyes. The arrival of Danny felt like a brief, jarring burst of daylight in the perpetual twilight of the Mangrove Creek McDonald's. Young, maybe 17, full of nervous energy and desperate for his first paycheck. He was a stark contrast to Sal's weary cynicism and my own burgeoning dread. He initially dismissed our hushed warnings and the unsettling atmosphere as graveyard shift blues and old building quirks. His optimism was almost painful to witness. The third rule had been a whisper of unease at the back of my mind, a horror I hadn't yet had to directly confront. That changed on a particularly still, humid Tuesday morning around 3:15 a.m. The restaurant was empty, the drive-thru lane silent. Even the swamp creatures outside seemed to have fallen into a watchful hush. Then, the drive-thru speaker crackled to life with a burst of static so loud it made all 3 of us jump. Not the usual click and hum of an approaching car, but a violent tearing sound, like reality itself ripping at the seams. The static resolved, not into a customer's order, but into a voice that was not human. It was an electronic mockery, a synthesized nightmare, layered and distorted, yet chillingly articulate. Clara Hayes, it boomed, the speaker vibrating in its casing. Vehicular incident. Interstate 95, mile marker 302. Twisted metal, shattered glass. The smell of gasoline so sweet. Your final breath, a rattle in your throat. Soon, Clara. Very soon. Every detail was precise, visceral. I could almost smell the gasoline, feel the phantom sting of glass. My mother had died in a car crash. Interstate 95, mile marker 302. For years, that specific stretch of highway had been a knot of cold dread in my heart. The voice from the speaker suddenly softened, losing its harsh metallic edge, becoming something else. Something terrifyingly familiar. It sounded like my mother's voice, gentle, loving, laced with an unutterable sadness. "Clara, darling," it crooned. The mimicry perfect. "It's all right. I'm here. I'm waiting for you, my sweet girl. Just answer me. Tell me you're coming." An overwhelming, almost irresistible compulsion washed over me. To press the transmit button, to speak to her, to apologize, to say anything. My hand trembled, reaching for the console. "Clara, no!" Sal's roar, raw and desperate, shattered the spell. He lunged, knocking my hand away just as my fingers brushed the button. The speaker fell silent, leaving only the hum of the dying static and the frantic thumping of my own heart. Danny stood frozen by the milkshake machine, his face bleached white, his earlier bravado entirely gone. What was that?" he stammered, his voice cracking. I noticed then that Mr. Grimshaw, who usually confined himself to his office during the deep hours, was engaging in increasingly complex maintenance routines around the exterior of the building and near the drive-thru speaker itself, often at odd times, almost like ritualistic offerings or wardings. He was jumpier, his smiles more strained, his eyes darting around as if expecting an imminent attack. The equilibrium of this place, however cursed, felt like it was starting to fray. Later, during a rare lull, driven by a morbid curiosity I couldn't suppress, I explored the grimy corners of the employee restroom. Behind a loose, discolored tile near the rusty sink, my fingers found something. A forgotten employee ID badge, caked in verdigris. The name printed on it was Joseph Miller. Joey. Sal's Joey. The photo was badly scratched, the plastic warped. But the eyes, through the damage, they seemed to stare directly into mine, wide and dark, mirroring a bottomless, unspeakable terror that was starting to feel very, very familiar. The first fat raindrops splattered against the drive-thru window, like thrown gravel. Within minutes, the tentative shower morphed into a full-blown Florida tropical storm. The wind howling like a banshee, rattling the very foundations of the Mangrove Creek McDonald's. The lights flickered, buzzed erratically, then plunged us into intermittent darkness, the emergency backup generator kicking in with a reluctant, sputtering cough that did little to dispel the deepening gloom. The storm's fury seemed to agitate something within the restaurant itself. The air grew thick, charged, the unsettling presence intensifying from a lurking dread to an active, aggressive malevolence. The place, usually just a source of low-level unease, became a focal point of the encroaching chaos. The brightly colored tubes seemed to writhe and twist, the strobing emergency lights, their plastic surfaces bulging as if something were trying to force its way out. The ball pit churned, small plastic spheres spilling onto the floor like grotesque multicolored pustules, and from within its shadowed depths, distorted, disembodied children's laughter echoed, sharp and mocking, horribly out of sync with the storm's roar. It sounded like they were laughing at us. The fryers began to bubble and spit with a life of their own, not with hot oil, but with a thick, black, viscous substance that reeked of sulfur and something ancient, like disturbed grave soil. The stench was overwhelming, a physical assault. More of Grimshaw's customers began to appear, not just singly now, but in small, shuffling groups. They no longer waited patiently at the counter. They were advancing, their headless raincoats rustling, an unspoken, implacable hunger radiating from their empty collars. The floral scent of funeral wreaths was now suffocating miasma. "We're out of everything," Sal yelled, his voice cracking, brandishing a mop handle like a makeshift weapon. It did little to deter them. Danny, who had been a trembling wreck since the drive-thru incident, finally snapped. The speaker crackled again, not with a death pronouncement this time, but with soft, soothing whispers, promising safety, warmth, an escape from the storm and the encroaching horrors. It used his mother's voice, just as it had used mine. "Danny, sweetie, come to the window. I'm right here. I'll keep you safe." Tears streaming down his face, ignoring our frantic shouts. Danny stumbled towards the drive-thru window, fumbling with the latch. "Mom?" he choked out, pressing the transmit button. The moment he spoke, a blast of frigid, swamp-smelling air erupted from the speaker. A shadowy, tendril-like appendage, blacker than the storm-ravaged night, shot out, ensnaring him. He screamed, a raw, high-pitched sound that was abruptly cut off as he was dragged, struggling feebly, towards the speaker, which now seemed to pulse with a horrific internal light. Then nothing. Danny was gone. The speaker crackled once, with a sound that might have been a wet, satisfied sigh. "He answered," Sal whispered, his face a mask of horror and resignation. "God help him," he answered. The grotesque parody of order had shattered. It was raw survival now. Clara and Sal found themselves back to back, dodging lurching, headless figures and the oily tendrils that now seemed to be seeping from the friars. "Grimshaw?" I screamed, my voice hoarse. "What is this place? What did you do?" The manager, who had been frantically trying to reset a sparking circuit breaker near the main office, finally broke. His face, illuminated by the erratic flash of lightning, was a ruin of terror and despair. "It's the land," he cried, his voice cracking. "Always been the land. The swamp. It feeds." He gestured wildly. "Years ago, there was an incident. Worse than this. It took everyone. Everyone but me." His eyes were wide, unfocused, staring at horrors only he could see. The corporation, they know about places like this. Places where the veil is thin. They brought me back, made me manager, a warden. The rules, the rituals, they're not for our safety. They're to manage the hunger. Small offerings, little tastes of fear, to keep it from taking everything. He looked at me then, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Calculation, or a desperate plea for an heir to his cursed throne. "It needs a conduit, Hayes. Someone sensitive, like you." His confession was cut short as one of the friars exploded, spewing the viscous black liquid across the floor. The headless figures lunged. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a feeding frenzy. Grimshaw, in a sudden crazed surge of action, grabbed a heavy fire extinguisher. "It needs to be contained," he shrieked. Not at us, but at the writhing chaos. The balance must be restored. He charged towards the epicenter of the disturbance, the now violently convulsing play place, from which the distorted children's laughter had reached a fever pitch. It was a suicidal, desperate act of a man with nothing left to lose. Or perhaps a final twisted attempt to fulfill his horrific bargain. Grimshaw's desperate charge into the pulsating heart of the play place was met with a cacophony of shrieks, both the high-pitched, distorted laughter of the unseen children and his own. There was a blinding flash of sickly green light from within Plastina structure, a wet, tearing sound, and then an unnerving, abrupt silence from that quarter, punctuated only by the relentless howl of the storm. The intense pressure in the restaurant seemed to lessen almost immediately, the advancing headless figures faltering, a few even seeming to dissolve into greasy shadows. The black liquid from the exploded fryer began to recede, sinking back into the drains and cracks in the floorboards, as if drawn by an unseen siphon. The Static Maw, or whatever unholy entity resided within the Mangrove Creek McDonald's, had been appeased. Or perhaps Grimshaw's final act had, in some terrible way, reset its cursed equilibrium. His fate was unknown. But the playplace was now still, dark, and reeked of ozone, and something indescribably foul, like spoiled meat and burnt plastic. Sal and I, battered, splattered with God knows what, and trembling with adrenaline and terror, found ourselves alone in the wreckage. Danny was gone, another ghost to haunt this cursed franchise. The storm outside was beginning to lose its fury, the wind's shriek softening to a mournful moan. As the first bruised light of dawn crept through the grime-caked windows, the McDonald's looked like a slaughterhouse visited by a poltergeist. Overturned tables, shattered serving trays, puddles of unidentifiable goo, and everywhere, that lingering, cloying scent of lilies and burnt sugar. But in the harsh light of day, some of the supernatural menace seemed to recede, leaving behind only a mundane, if extreme, scene of vandalism and storm damage. It was a chilling reminder of how easily the horrific could masquerade as the ordinary. I looked at Sal. His face was gray, aged a decade in a single night. "We need to go," he said, his voice a hollow rasp. Before whatever passes for morning shift gets here." We stumbled out into the damp, steamy Florida morning. The air, though still heavy, felt cleaner, breathable, after the suffocating miasma inside. The world outside the McDonald's parking lot looked shockingly normal. Cars drove by on the nearby road, their drivers oblivious to the charnel house we had just escaped. The thin veneer of reality felt more fragile, inky, more terrifyingly illusory than ever before. I was alive, but a part of me, I knew, had died in there, amidst the grease and the static and the headless hunger. I felt stained, fundamentally altered by what I had witnessed, by what I now knew lurked just beneath the surface of the mundane. The official story concocted by whatever shadow of the corporation Grimshaw had alluded to was depressingly predictable. Severe storm damage, a possible gas leak leading to minor explosions, significant vandalism. Mangrove Creek McDonald's was closed for renovations until further notice. Danny Porter was listed as a missing person, likely wandered off during the storm. Mr. Alistair Grimshaw was also presumed to have perished tragically while trying to secure the property. Sal and I gave heavily edited statements, clinging to the plausible deniability the official narrative offered. The truth was too monstrous to articulate, too insane to be believed. I tried to return to my life, to my art, but something had broken. Or perhaps something had been unlocked. My canvases were no longer blank. They filled with furious, obsessive energy, depicting things I had no conscious memory of wanting to paint. Friars that gaped like hungry maws, smiling clowns with eyes full of static, headless figures gathered under tarnished golden arches, the suffocating bloom of funeral lilies. My creative block was gone, replaced by a torrent of dark inspiration. My work began to gain attention, unsettling, compelling pieces that viewers said got under their skin. I was finally succeeding as an artist, but the price was a constant, low thrum of dread, and the lingering smell of old grease that no amount of turpentine could seem to wash away. The whispers didn't entirely cease. Sometimes, late at night, the static from my old radio would coalesce into a faint, familiar hiss. I'd catch glimpses of rain-coated figures without heads in crowded streets, only to blink and find them gone. The scent of lilies would ambush me at unexpected moments, triggering a fresh wave of nausea and fear. One evening, scrolling through a local newsfeed, an article caught my eye. Golden Arches expansion. McDonald's announces ambitious new developments across Central Florida. Below it, almost an afterthought, was a small classified ad seeking experienced night shift managers for new Florida locations. Unique challenges, discretion assured. A cold dread, sharp and familiar, pierced through me. The cycle wasn't broken. It was just franchising. A week later, Sal called. He sounded older, his voice gravelly. "Been doing some digging, Clara. That land, Mangrove Creek, Before it was a swamp, long before McDonald's built its altar to cheap burgers, the local Seminole tribes avoided it, called it the place that hungers. Said an old spirit lived there, one that demanded offerings, sacrifices to keep it from wandering. He paused. Grimshaw wasn't the first kid, and far as I can tell, the corporation, or whoever they are, they've got a whole playbook for these special locations. I hung up, the weight of his words settling heavily. The Static Maw wasn't unique. My survival felt less like an escape and more like an audition. My art, once a refuge, now felt like a beacon, attracting unseen eyes. Last night, I'd woken to a new smell in my studio. Not lilies, but the faint, unmistakable aroma of fresh fry oil, and on my newest canvas, a portrait of a featureless void. A single, golden arch was beginning to form, unbidden, from the shadows, as if the painting itself were waiting for its first, terrible customer. The menu, I realized with a sickening lurch, was still open. And the Static Maw, or something very much like it, knew my order. Some appetites can never be sated. Clara Hayes learned that the hard way. The Mangrove Creek McDonald's may be closed, but the Static Maw's hunger is eternal. Grimshaw's rules are broken, but the price of admission is still being paid. Seriously, if you didn't stay until the very end, you missed the final chilling reveal. The twist that shows the true, horrifying reach of the corporation and the entities it serves. The final order has been placed. What do you think the Static Maw is? What was Grimshaw's true role? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you made it through the night shift, if the drive-thru hasn't called your name, then you're already on the menu. Subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules. Because sometimes, the worst horrors, they come with fries. And the Static Maw is always open.